lil alamin, and so on. Previously, we've heard from two speakers in the last 2 Fridays. We heard about the importance of amanah and academic integrity, and then we heard about recently radiating the concept of rahmatan lil alamin at a higher level, at a higher learning institution. I would like to thank and welcome all of you today to today's session. Today we'll be hearing from Dr. Farid the importance of Iqra in achieving Hikmah. For the knowledge of the audience, today we will have 2 parts or 2 rounds, right? The first sort of part or first session or first round is the speaker delivering his speech or his talk for about an hour. And then, of course, immediately afterwards, there will be a Q&A session. So, of course, feel free, just like the previous iterations we've had, to chime in, and I will read the questions which are written, and perhaps you can also say the questions which you wish to speak of. Before we begin, allow me to introduce our distinguished guest. Thank you again for being here with us, Dr. Farid. Dr. Farid Mohammed Shahran is currently a Principal Fellow and Director at the Center of the Study of Sharia Laws and Politics at the Institute of Islamic Understanding Malaysia, IKIM. Of course, he obtained his bachelor's degree from IIU in the field of Islamic Studies with a specialization in Islamic jurisprudence and principles of Islamic jurisprudence. And then he pursues his master's and PhD at the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization, Malaysia, ISTAC, in the field of Islamic thought in 1999 and 2006, respectively. He worked as a research fellow in ISTAC for about 8 years before he served as a lecturer at the Department of Usuluddin and Comparative Religion at the Kuliah of Islamic Real Knowledge and Heritage in IIU, of course, from 2003 to 2011. For him, his areas of interest are Islamic thought, as evident, principles of Islamic jurisprudence, Islamic civilization and education, and of course his academic writings are issues in Islamic thought. In 2008, he had a paper, Divine Transcendence and Issue of Anthropomorphism. And then he writes another paper in 2011, says, on the dimensions of thought, religion, and the challenges of ethical subjectivism. Interesting to read. And of course, books. He has Isu-isu dalam pemikiran Islam, akidah dalam pemikiran Islam, pluralism, agama, satu penelitian Islami, and so on. So a few books from him. Dr. Farid, of course, has been presenting papers and giving lectures locally and internationally, including in Germany, Turkey, Japan, Singapore, and Indonesia. Among his collaborations also, I think, has included works conducted with the Center of Integrated Area Studies, Kyoto University, University of Malaya, University Putra Malaysia, and then of course he conducts trainings as well in various institutions in Malaysia such as Intan, Jakim, Akim. Finally, of course, his other involvements include being a member of the National Fatwa Council of Malaysia, a member of the Islamic Theology Expert Council with the Department of Islamic Development, a member of the Fatwa Council of Negeri Sembilan, and finally he's also appointed as a senior fellow in the Center at the Center of Human Rights Research and Advocacy. This is a restless man and a determined one, and enviable and admirable. So with great pleasure, I invite Dr. Farid to say a few words, and of course later we'll be able to speak again at the question and answer session. Dr. Farid, please, if you may.
Before that, are we not listening from the Dean before? Before that?
Oh, sorry. Yes, correct.
Okay.
My mistake. My apologies. We'll hear from Prof. Shukran first. I'm excited. My apologies. I'm very excited.
Thank you, Dr. Meor, for emceeing today's session. Dr. Muhammad Farid Shahran, our brother, our senior from IKIM, thank you very much for agreeing to address us today. Dr. Muhammad Noor, the Deputy Dean of Student Development and Community Engagement, thank you for organizing this third session of Ibadah Camp. My brothers and sisters in the kuliah, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good afternoon to all of you. I would like to again welcome back Dr. Muhammad Farid Shahran to this kuliah of Islamic Review Knowledge and Human Sciences. He had served as our Deputy Dean last time, I think about 12 years ago. Right, so we would like to learn from you again, Dr. Farid. Right, inshallah, we'll make our ibadah, our work better after listening from you, inshallah. And I would like to take this opportunity, my brothers and sisters, to congratulate you for completing this semester, this 12th week of semester 1, which has been conducted again in virtual or hybrid manner in that sense. Alhamdulillah, I think despite the COVID-19 pandemic, besides the limitation that we have to go through, we had managed to uphold and I think implement the culture of Iqra, right? In our own way. I mean, by using certain hikmah, right? I'm not sure whether I'm using the word culture of Iqra or hikmah in an appropriate manner here. Perhaps it's better to hear from Dr. Farid so that we will know exactly what hikmah is and what is the relationship between hikmah and the culture of Iqra. So thank you very much, Dr. Farid, and thank you very much to all of you for participating and joining us in this Ibadah camp. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Meor and Dr. Farid. Assalamualaikum.
Maybe you have to unmute.
We'll go straight to, thank you, Prof. Shukran. We'll go straight to Dr. Farid.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Shukran and Prof. Dr. Muhammad Noor Jalil and also Dr. Meor, respected professors, members of the kuliah, academic and also administrative staff of the kuliah, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon and Jum'ah Mubarakah as well. Alhamdulillah, I'm very grateful to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala for His blessing, and I also would like to thank the kuliah, Prof. Shukran especially, for the invitation. I'm glad to be part of this Ibadah camp, although I strongly believe that I'm not the most qualified person to speak in front of most of them, my guru, my former teachers, Prof. Tamim, Prof. Mumtaz, and other professors, and also my colleagues who I think have achieved more excellent achievement in their academic life compared to myself. Nevertheless, I take this as an amanah because amanah also is part of the 4 principles of IUM, from the KhAIR. So I receive it with a very difficult feeling, especially to fulfill this invitation. Especially it is the former place of mine, KIRKHS, the kuliah that has taught me for nearly 4 years in my undergraduate days together with Prof. Shukran, and the kuliah that I also have taught for I think 5 or 6 years. And I believe there are many other qualified and better person to speak today. But I think knowing Prof. Shukran, professor in psychology, and others, they very much understand the nature of men and the psychology of men, and they always like to give room for outsiders to talk to the audience, just like the great football clubs in EPL, which always brought new players to strengthen their teams. Although these new players or outsiders sometimes do not score goal. I think Mohamed Salah in Liverpool, I think in these few latest matches did not score. I hope I'm not having that problem today. As far as the topic of our discussion this afternoon is concerned, I was given originally a topic by Prof. Shukran on the topic of Iqra. I was contacted by Dr. Noh and also Dr. Haslina, but I counter-suggested the topic of Hikmah, which is, I think, maybe closer to me and easier to me because I have done something on Hikmah. But the final topic that was given is the importance of Iqra in achieving Hikmah, a kind of a good integration that is IU is good in integration between Iqra and Hikmah. And only later on I realized that actually this Iqra is part of the four important principles of IUM, KhAIR, which is Khalifah, Amanah, Iqra, and Rahmatan lil Alamin, abbreviated as KhAIR. Of course, I have to talk about Iqra also, although maybe the main point is Hikmah. Otherwise, I'm not doing KhAIR to IUM. Although I hope I'm not doing share also by talking or relating Iqra also to Hikmah. So to start our discussion, I will try to start with Hikmah and then relate it to Iqra, inshallah. And I believe the more precious and valuable point is when we can also get some response or additional ideas from other senior colleagues or scholars from the Kuliah later on. So let me just start the ball rolling first. I think we can start the PowerPoint. The first one, the next one. Okay. I believe when we talk about Hikmah and Iqra, these are two important virtues, especially the two are mentioned clearly by the Quran as important virtues. And Iqra, as we understood, is a very important and necessary means to achieve knowledge, And as we understood very well that in one of the maxim of principles of Islamic jurisprudence, it is said that ma la yatimul wajib illa bihi fahuwa wajib. When something obligatory cannot be fulfilled without a means or certain means, then the means also become obligatory. So because knowledge is something obligatory, something important in Islam, and Hikmah is the higher level of knowledge, then Iqra as a important means toward knowledge, and Hikmah is also obligatory in that sense. And of course, I will argue later that since Hikmah is a special kind of knowledge or higher level of knowledge, then even the means toward that also must be a special one. It means that even if we want to talk about Iqra, it must be a kind of a deeper meaning of Iqra, not a normal kind of Iqra, in order for us to achieve this higher level of knowledge, which is called Hikmah. Having said that, I will start talking about hikmah, for the meaning of hikmah. Can we go to the next one? Why is this topic of hikmah is very important? I think we have heard a khabar which says that al-hikmatu dallatul mu'min faman wajadaha fahuwa ahqqu minha. That wisdom is the stray camel, or the lost germ, or the lost thing of the believers, of the mu'min, and whoever find it, he has the right to acquire it. So in our existing scenario, or our current life, I think this is what is lost in our society, including in our higher institution of learning. A level of knowledge that is more universal, more inclusive, which we call hikmah. Next. Furthermore, I think one of the most important situation, or maybe dilemma that we are in today, even though we are having a very advanced technological information technology, advancement in information technology, where we can get information easily, and the world become a very small village to us. People are talking about knowledge worker, knowledge management, and we have abundance of channels where we can get information and so-called knowledge. But the fact is that we are only drowned with information, but we are still hunger with knowledge, or hikmah. This is what, for example, E.O. Wilson, the American biologist, he mentioned that we are drowning in information while starving for wisdom. And he said further that the world henceforth will be run by synthesizers, people who are able to put together the right information at the right time, think critically about it, and make important choices wisely. I think that is quite close to what we mean by hikmah in Islam, but of course we have some other additional elements that constitute hikmah that I will speak later. Next. Yes, can we? Yeah. So the irony is that we have abundance of information, yet this information will not transform into proper knowledge, what more hikmah, if it is not properly grasped through a properly systematic way of understanding it. In other words, ma'lumat will remain ma'lumat if we fail to transform this ma'lumat into knowledge through proper understanding and to proper grasping the meaning of this ma'lumat. What more if these abundance of ma'lumat that we gain today through our advanced information technology, they are all contradictory and going against each other. We can Google anything today. Even students, we know very well today, they can do their homework or assignment, especially online during this PKP, just by clicking or typing anything in Google. Yet those information will not constitute knowledge or hikmah before they can properly put the information in the proper perspective. That is what hikmah partially means. So let me begin by at least talking about the meaning of hikmah. Literally, there are a few explanation by our lexicologists or our experts in kamus, lexicons, about the meaning of hikmah. One of the literal meaning of hikmah is to restrain, mana, to restrain, and this action of restraining is related to our mind and reason or intellect or akal, whatever term we use. In Islam, of course, we use the word akal, which functions to tie the meaning of proper knowledge in the mind through refraining it from unnecessary information. In fact, the word akal itself means to restrain or to put and tie properly things. That's why the iqal of the Arab functions to tie the turban properly on their head, because it plays the role of tying and restraining things. And then that is also the meaning of hakama or hikmah. It functions like our akal to properly put things together and to refrain other things which are not necessary into the akal. And hikmah begins with our mind's ability to grasp meaning. Like we said just now, that the most important one is to transform this various information that came into our self through the various channel, our senses and our reason, and it is our mind that will properly put things in the proper place, and the ability of doing that is hikmah. And of course, this hikmah can be done through learning, properly learning things, and properly think, nazar, and exchanging views. And that is why dialogue is also important to increase our wisdom, because through dialogue we can understand things more properly and widen our spectrum of understanding about something. In fact, in the Islamic tradition, there is a discipline which is called al-bahthu wal-munazara. I don't think we have it in our university today, al-bahthu wal-munazara. Of course, we have the more modern subject called research methodology. But in the past, we have the discipline of al-bahthu wal-munazara, which combine logic, mantik, and also dialectics, the way we argue, mujadalah, munazara or mujadalah. And it became one proper discipline in Islamic tradition, where scholars and students of knowledge learn how to conceptualize thing properly, how to define thing properly, and how to arrange their premises when they are doing dialogue with other counterpart in the proper manner, premises and the conclusion. And that was also taught in logic. In logic also, a subject where I taught for I think 4 years in RKUD. It deals nothing but to define things properly and to argue things in a systematic way. So hikmah partially means that the ability of the mind to understand the meaning of things through proper definition, and also to relate one concept to another concept through proper judgment, which we call syllogism. So that is one of the meaning of hikmah. Can we go to the next one? The next one, the meaning of hikmah also is to perfect something. So it means that the wisdom will be strengthened through continuous striving, not only in thinking, but also to put our thought into practice. I was reminded by Prof. Shukran that we are not going to talk about hikmah which are only theoretical. Definitely the meaning of hikmah is not only theoretical. Hikmah also has the implication of something that we put in our thought, that we put in action. So there is an amal aspect of in hikmah. In fact, it is through our long experience that we can develop hikmah or wisdom in ourselves. In fact, Al-Ghazali also in his Ihya, the first book of Ihya, which is Kitabul Ilm, also define akal as experience. One of the meaning of akal is the long experience that we undergo in our life, that will be part of our akal actually. So the way we think will be very much influenced by our experience. So hikmah also means to perfect something. And the third one, next. And the third one is to judge, qada. So judgment, proper judgment is also part of hikmah. And that is why we can see that today, for example, the word hakim is only very much related to the judicial aspect of profession. In fact, hakim is not only the legal person who gives judgment, but hakim in a real sense is the one that possesses hikmah. So, but of course, in the history, things sometimes become narrowed down in terms of meaning and become specialized and technical. So one of the technical meaning of hikmah become more narrowed down to jurisprudence or law. But still, that is actually one dimension of hikmah. Okay, these are the literal meaning of hikmah. Let us go to the next one. I hope I can finish it earlier because we can do some discussion, because I don't want the professors thinking that I am lecturing them and they are becoming part of students that are everyday lecturing. I'm sorry for that. I don't intend to do that. This is just a point that I just put forward for us to discuss. In another dimension in our history of Islamic tradition, the Quran also talks about hikmah. Not only the sages, the philosophers, the thinkers in the past, who sometimes, for me, they sabotage the meaning of hikmah and narrow it down only to means philosophy, for example, because philosophia means the love of wisdom, the love of hikmah. But if we look at the Quran also talk about hikmah, and let us take some of the meanings of hikmah in the Quran in order for us to complement what we understand in terms of the literal and also the philosophical meaning of hikmah. The Quran talks about hikmah in a very positive way. For example, the Quran says, yu'tal hikmata man yasha wa man yu'tal hikmata faqad utiya khairan katsira, in Al-Baqarah 269, which means that God grants wisdom to whom he pleases, and to whom the wisdom is granted, he is indeed receive a benefit overflowing, khairan kathira. So it means that wisdom is something special given by God to the one he wishes. And it also closely connected to goodness. That is quite interesting, because if, for example, the philosophers talk about philosophy, sometimes sometimes detached to ethics and religion, the Quran, on the other hand, talks about hikmah, related it very closely to goodness, to khair. And the Quran says, وَمَنْ يُؤْتَ الْحِكْمَةَ فَقَدْ أُوتِيَ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا. Those who are given hikmah, he is indeed being given a bountiful of goodness. And some figures in the Quran that the Quran mentioned, like Luqman, is also being called Al-Hakim. Why? Because he is imparting good knowledge to and advice to his son about Tawheed, about doing good to parents, for example. These are all goodness being attached to figures like Luqman, who are continuously doing good things. And therefore, hikmah not only related to the ability of our mind to think, to capture meaning, but those meaning must also be closely related to goodness, to al-bir, to al-khair. Next. And in the Quran, the model of the people who are possessing hikmah, the highest one is the prophets. In fact, prophets were, as mentioned by the Quran, are those who are sent in order to teach the book, the kitab, and also hikmah. وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. In fact, some mufassir, because of these verses, they identify hikmah with nubuwah. So hikmah is nothing but prophecy, but nubuwah, the teaching, the sunnah, the teaching of the prophet. Okay, next. And in another verse, hikmah also is related to wise approach that we are using in calling other people toward Islam. And in this verse, very famous verse, especially for those who are teaching Islamic da'wah. In fact, I took this in one of my Islamic da'wah PowerPoint. Hikmah is the best method of calling people to Islam. Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmah wal mau'izatil hasanah wajadilhum billati hi ahsan. Call to the way of your Lord with hikmah and good admonition, and argue in the best way. At least three methods introduced by the Quran that we can use in order for us to do da'wah. And I remember reading Fakhruddin Ar-Razi, Imam Fakhruddin Ar-Razi, tafsir Mafatihul Ghaib or Tafsir Al-Kabir. He presented a beautiful and excellent explanation about these three methodologies that we can use in da'wah. Why there are three, according to Ar-Razi? Because at least in our society, there are three group of people that can be called towards our religion. The first one is those who are having a higher level of understanding and thinking. And to these people, said Ar-Razi, we can use hikmah. But hikmah in this particular verse, according to Ar-Razi, he explained it as using a strong and a strong and demonstrative way of argument that is demonstrative, argument that is very clear, muhkamat, premises which are clear, the natijah is also clear. So because the audience are those who are having a clear mind, so of course to these people we can and we have to use this arguments which are higher level that can be easily understood by them. But in our society, there are also people that are who are not having a higher level of understanding. They are laymen, they are common people. And to these people, according to Ar-Razi, we can use the second one, Mau'izah Hasanah, a good admonition, good sayings, stories, for example, because they cannot understand premises of intellectual arguments. They cannot understand dialectics and others. So to these people, just say good things to them. Just give analogy, give mithal, give stories to them. Ibadah. But there are also, according to Ar-Razi, in our society, people who are very antagonistic towards the da'i. They always want to argue. They are prejudiced. They want to go against the ideas given by the da'i. So to them, according to Ar-Razi, we have to use the third one, which is mujadalah. Wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan. Even if they are antagonistic to the da'i still have to give the best in doing dialogue and doing debates with them. That's why it is said wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan. So these three methodologies, according to Imam Ar-Razi, is because of the three levels of, at least three levels of audiences that we will face in our society. And again, the first one, hikmah, to Ar-Razi means a strong, demonstrative, powerful arguments. Okay, next. So I have at least presented two meanings of hikmah, one from the literal and maybe some philosophical explanation, and another one from the Quran. But I don't think these two perspectives, the Quranic and also the literal meaning, are contradictory. They are complementary. So again, I took this from Ar-Razi's explanation. He summarized very nicely that combine these two, Quranic and also the literal and philosophical meaning of wisdom or hikmah. So what are basically hikmah, the meaning of hikmah? The first, it is a knowledge of reality of things. Ma'rifatu haqaiqul asya. So through proper grasping of meaning, using our mind, using our akal, we can know the reality of things through definition and through conversing with others and come to a proper and right conclusion after conversation. And not only that, hikmah also is to put things in their proper position. Of course, this is also the definition of adil. But hikmah and adil are very much interrelated, because hikmah is the knowledge of the things in the proper place, and adil is the action that we take based on this hikmah to do things properly, to put things in the proper place. And hikmah also means to bring action in accordance with our knowledge. Tawfiq al-amal bil-ilm. So this is the practical aspect of hikmah that is also and very important, because we don't want to talk about wisdom just theoretically and rationally, but that hikmah must be translated into proper action. In fact, that is what the Quran always emphasizing, that if you have iman, you also have to doing amal salih. Alladzina amanu wa amilus salihat. And the last one, hikmah also means the decisive proof, which are useful especially to strengthen the religious belief. Hujjah al-qat'iyyah al-mufidah lil-aqaid ad-diniyah. So in that sense, we can see that there is a combination between the meaning of hikmah that we understood literally and the attributes that are given by the Quran about hikmah that are complementary to this meaning. And inshallah, if we understand properly this meaning of hikmah, then hikmah can become an attribute or a virtue that is, in fact, it has already been one of the cardinal virtues explained by our thinkers in the past. Al-Ghazali talk about it, Ibn Sina talk about it, about 4 cardinal virtues, Al-Ummahat, Al-Fadail. Hikmah is the first one, wisdom. The second one is hikmah, iffah, hikmah, iffah, adil, and the fourth one is what? I have left lecturing. Hikmah, adalah,
Syaja'ah.
and syaja'ah. MashaAllah, thank you. Syaja'ah. And interestingly, these 3 are very much related to psychology also, the psychology of human being. Because it is part of human nature that we have akal, for example. And when we really put our akal in the proper place, then it will lead to hikmah. We have ghadabiyah, ghadab, for example, the amarah in our self, and if we put our ghadab in the proper place, then it will give rise to syaja'ah. We have shahwah in ourself. If you put our shahwah, control it and put it in the proper place, then it will give rise to iffah. And adl is the culmination of these 3. If you have these 3, hikmah, wisdom, syaja'ah, courage, and iffah, temperance, then automatically we are actually a just person because we are putting things in the proper place. Okay, next. And according to Ar-Razi, for example, actually this hikmah is actually the path toward the perfection of mankind, because first by the hikmah nazariyah, the theoretical wisdom, we can know things truly as it is, and through the hikmah amaliyah, the practical one, we can gain benefit and goodness through our action following that knowledge. Next. And like I said, the hikmah is the combination between the two, the theoretical and the practical. Knowledge, by theoretical, it means we know the knowledge of the essence of thing, and the comprehension based on proper conceptualization, tasawwur and tasdiq. And there is also a good and balanced combination between various channels of knowledge. This is also an important discussion in our theology, Islamic theology, talking about the asbab al-ilm, the channel of knowledge. And it must be balanced. The problem of the modern academia is that in the West, for example, especially the secular one, they are emphasizing one channel of knowledge and going towards sometimes rejecting another channel of knowledge. For example, the rationalists, the philosophers, for example, they are upholding the channel of reason. Sometimes they are rejecting the empirical or the senses as the ultimate channel of knowledge. The same thing, the empiricists, they will always emphasize on senses, on empirical data and observation, sometimes rejecting reason, rational principle. And both sometimes reject another channel of knowledge, which is khabar from the Rasul, that is the most important one for us Muslim, as not a valid channel of knowledge and not scientific. So in Islam, these 3 channels of knowledge are being beautifully and systematically combined, and we are not taking one and deny another one. Through the practical aspect of hikmah, then the goodness resulted from doing good. and it will take place when man acquires knowledge about the maslahah and mafsadah of something and act accordingly. This is part of maqasid also, maqasid syariah. Not only to know what is good, but also to choose between two goods, for example. Awlawiyat also, to choose between two goods and to choose between two darar, akhafud dararain. That is also part of wisdom. Then I think that is more things that are missing in our society today. Sometimes they just go to the decision that they think good without properly weighing it and make a good and the best ikhtiyar, the best selection or choice in terms of their life. And in fact, in the practical aspect of wisdom, we have the Prophet as the best example. And in fact, like Al-Ghazali and Al-Razi, they also talk about imitating God. But of course, not imitating God in a tashabbuh sense, not shirk sense, but imitating they recite the hadith which says takhallaqu bi akhlaqillah. We can follow, we can benefit from the attributes of the divine, but at our level. For example, if God is Rahman and Rahim, at the level of human being, we can also be Rahman and Rahim. If God is Al-Wadud, God is even Muntaqim, and either it is from Jalal or from the Jamal, both can be somehow taken as an example in our life, but of course at the human level, not in the going to tashbih and others. Okay, next, I have just a few more, and I think based on my reading of Ar-Razi, sorry, I always quote Ar-Razi because my master and PhD is based on Ar-Razi. And of course, we can also take from other scholars. For him, the prophets reflect both hikmah. He gave some example. For example, Prophet Ibrahim, who asked God to grant him wisdom and include him with the pious people. Rabbi habli hukman. The root word is the same with hikmah, but Ar-Razi refers that to hikmah nazariyah. Al-hiqni bis-salihin. And that al-hiqni bis-salihin, to do good thing, amal salih, that is hikmah amaliyah. So even to the Prophet, we can see that when God asks something, it is a combination between hikmah nazariyah and hikmah amaliyah. We have to properly understand, including God. And we know the story of Prophet Ibrahim. He was trying to use his reason to doing tadabbur about the existence of God. And ultimately, God guides him towards a proper understanding. So it means that even the nazariyah, the theoretical one, must be proper, and also the amaliyah one. Prophet Musa the same. Wanada Musa alaihi salam faqala innani anallah la ilaha illa ana summa qala fa'budni. So the first part is hikmah nazariyah, and the second one is hikmah amaliyah. Ibadah is something practical. So this is tafsir of Ar-Razi of some of the message and teachings of the Prophet, and based on the Quran. It shows that even the Prophet given both hikmah and commanded to practice both hikmah. Next, Prophet Isa the same, tawheed and true submission. Inni Abdullah, to be Abdullah, of course you have to know God, you have to have a proper tawheed. Wa qala awsani bis salati waz zakah ma dumtu hayya. So they are also being reminded to do proper ibadah, salat, zakat, and others. And Prophet Muhammad, fa'alam annahu la ilaha illallah, is a kind of theoretical hikmah, in the sense that you have to really understand God. And wastaghfir li zambik, that is to do istighfar, is something amaliyah or practical. Next. And of course, like I said, some mufassir even identify hikmah with nubuwah. Because of what? Because the most perfect manifestation of hikmah is nubuwah. Because the Prophet is fatana, having a good understanding and akal in his life. And also, the Prophet also given some hikmah amaliyah. Nevertheless, a wise level of reason will be in line with what the Prophet bring through religion. Of course, this is debatable, but some even philosophers or even thinkers in Islam, they said that even our mind can come to some conclusion that is in line with the Quran and what religion tells us. There's a very interesting story by the Spanish philosophers, Ibn Yaqzan, Ibn Tufail, who wrote the story about Ibn Yaqzan, a person or a young person who being nurtured by the nature, and later on in his life, when he tried to ponder whatever that he saw around him, he came to some conclusion about God, about the divine. But of course, the conclusion are not perfect. At least the existence of God, for example, that this universe cannot be there by chance. There must be a cause of this existence. So it means that even our nazari, our thought, our akal, our mind has the ability to come to some religious conclusion about the existence of God. But of course, we need prophet to complement, to furnish further our knowledge about the divine, especially in terms of the details, the name of God, the way how to interact with this God and others. Can we go to the next one? Okay, let me finally relate this topic to Iqra. Like I said, reading is something necessary especially to achieve knowledge. And like we said, hikmah is higher level of knowledge, in the sense that first it gives us the widest spectrum of things in looking at realities. Sometimes it is called the eagle view perspective, wisdom. Wisdom is when we look at things in an eagle view perspective. It means at a higher and wider spectrum of perspective, in order for us to know the proper place of things and later on to act based on that proper knowledge. In the past, they said philosophy represents the best hikmah. Why? Because they said philosophy is the mother of all sciences. Because philosophy almost talk about everything. That is what philosophy is trying to do. Talking about metaphysics, talking about physics, talking about ethics, talking about politics, talking about economics. All are included in philosophy. But of course, today philosophy has been somehow being narrowed down to some emphasis, and already do not talk about others. Okay. We agree that reading is a necessary tool of knowledge, but because hikmah is a higher level of knowledge, then even the reading or the Iqra that we want to emphasize in order to gain hikmah must be a special or a deeper kind of Iqra. And what are these deeper or special manner of Iqra? From my understanding, first, it is not a mere reading, but it must be a reading with a proper worldview. Especially today, for example, our students in university, they are being introduced by many sources of knowledge, sources of disciplines, online, for example. So of course, without a proper worldview, proper structure, systematically built in their mind to receive all this abundance of ma'lumat, we are afraid that they cannot put properly all this ma'lumat into a proper framework. And of course, when we talk about worldview, we are talking about Islam. We are talking about our aqidah. We are talking about our framework of knowledge that has been properly discussed and placed by our scholars in the past, and also the limits beyond which it will not become hikmah, but maybe it become something deviance to the proper hikmah. So reading, of course, very important, but we have to read based on proper preliminary knowledge, and it is already there, I think, in our educational system, where we talk about fardu ain and fardu kifayah. And of course, KhAIR was formed mainly for this objective, and we have achieved many things. I think IUM has been acknowledged as a university that succeed in somehow integrating the fardu ain and the fardu kifayah. We made it compulsory, for example, for students of fardu kifayah disciplines to also compulsorily obligatory for them to also take some important subjects in fardu ain, like aqidah, Islamiyah, Islamic ethics, Islamic da'wah, and others. And of course, this thing must be dynamic. It cannot be it must be revised from time to time, especially what are the additional or more important things that are relevant to today's challenges, for example, as far as our fardu ain is concerned. We cannot just base our aqidah on, sometimes our ustaz, they are giving examples in aqidah, the classical example that is not there today. The examples must be from the current challenges that we are facing, for example. We can talk about Mu'tazilah, but today we have to talk about secularism, for example. We talk about Dahriyah in the past, but today we are facing with even the Muslim atheists among the youth, for example. They claim that they are atheists, but they are Muslim. So those are things that we have to highlight and put into maybe part of the examples, part of the case studies to our students today. And maybe they can go and do their research and analysis to this kind of group. The second one, Iqra, that is needed as far as Hikmah is concerned, is to read with the aim to gain virtues and goodness and hoping the barakah from God. This is based on what the Quran says. And if we read, for example, Surah Al-Alaq, it begins with Iqra bismi rabbika. So it is not a mere reading, but it must be a reading with the name of God. So it means reading with a proper worldview of Islam, reading with a proper objective, virtuous objective, especially to gain goodness, barakah, sawab from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. And the third one, we talk about Iqra. We also want to talk about Iqra. Not only reading the ayat al-maqru'ah, but we want also to read the ayat al-manzurah, because God created ayat or signs not only through the ayat that being revealed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but also the ayat that is being there from the creation of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. The creation are also part of the ayat. The creation is also part of the things that we have to read. They are also sentences. Only that the sentences are not clear enough. So we need proper ta'wil, proper understanding. Of course, that understanding must be based on the ayat maqru'ah. So the Quran must be the proper guidance for us to read the universe. So in other words, science must be properly guided by religion, by tawhid, by theology. In fact, there's a saying in Arabic which says, Al-kaun ma'anin yaqumu bis-suwari wa man yudrikuha kana min ahli al-ibari. That the creation is the meanings that are formed by pictures and not sentences, but creations. And those who are able to read the sentences of nature, they are from the Ahlul Ibar. They are from the people who have good understanding and Hakim, of course, Hikmah. So I think this is the meeting point between Hikmah and Iqra. So my conclusion is that even when we talk about Iqra, which is very important in Islam, it must be based on something deeper in order for us to arrive at proper understanding and to gain what we call hikmah in our life. I think there's the one or two more slide. Can we go to the next? And the conclusion is that maybe we can also relate this hikmah and Iqra as virtues that are pertinent as far as facing extremism is concerned. Because today we are facing groups who are putting emotion forward more than their proper reason. Their interests, group interests and individual interests are more than the common and others' interests. So hikmah and Iqra are important to inculcate the culture of proper understanding. And it is also a higher order thinking based on proper logical method. I hope we can continue teaching logic in KIRKHS, because it's very important to emphasize the fact that even to the so-called religious people or religious discipline, they have to have proper thinking. They have to explain the religion in a reasonable way. They have to look at the teachings of the religion in a deeper way and in a more consistent way. Because extremism emerged when verses of the Quran were taken partially without looking at the the proper balance between one verse to another verse, and not looking at the Quran as a whole. The next one. And of course, we have to bring back Hikmah and Iqra to our education system. It is there, but we have to strike a balance between only reading and memorizing. We also to talk about understanding and grasping meaning in a proper sense. Next. And one also important things today, I think we need a more aggressive inter and intra-religious dialogue, but it must be guided by and be done by the Muslims, not only we receive invitation by others, but we have to set the discussion, set the theme of the discussion, and we have to put forward our strongest view and strongest teachings of Islam forward, in order for Islam to be again rahmatan lil alamin. As a religion of rahmah, of course, it must be properly presented and must be properly understood by others. I think those are all my ideas, Prof. Shukran and Dr. lupa dah nama dia. Dr. Meor. I hope I can also listen to many wise professors and academicians from the kuliah. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Dr. Farid, for the informative and interesting talk. I really appreciated the final note you ended on, that we ought to be able to read the sentences of nature, and the meaning comes from what's being pictured and what you can see. In fact, I have a question on this later on, but I'll open it for my brothers and sisters. Of course, now we have reached the Q&A sharing session. If you have a question, you're welcome to ask your question. You can introduce your name, which department you're from. You can type it, I'll read it out, or you can just chime in and we'll get you to speak if that's okay. So if you please, if there are any questions, otherwise I'll ask one. Mine will be very easy. What can we do to improve?
Assalamualaikum.
Yeah. Please.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Farid and the rest, Prof. Shukran and others. Thank you, Ibu Bagi Dr. Farid, Shahran, for sharing a very thoughtful and wise point with us today. My question is, from what you have said, supposedly people of Hikmah demonstrated a good value in them. If they give judgment or solution, it will be just and seen to be just as well. But if we look at our Muslim scholars and our leaders, ulama and umara today, with regard to their views, opinions, action, are very much criticized by fellow Muslim as well as non-Muslims. So does it mean that our ulama and umara today, they have no longer possess hikmah? Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, that is already a difficult question. Are we collecting question, or I have to respond immediately, Doctor?
Which one do you prefer? I think it depends on what the question is, right?
Oh, okay.
Second question, Doctor.
Or maybe we can take 2 or 3 first, and then we can,
We'll take 2 for now.
Second question from Sufiman.
Yeah, Dr. Safi.
Just to make sure about the ayat 269.
Okay.
Ayat 269. The last ayat, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala said, "Wa ma yadhakkaru illa ulul albab." That very important point to us to make sure that Iqra and Hikmah become together here, because Hikmah cannot accept without Tadakkur. I will Iqra. And I would like to only share with friends about ulul albab. Allah see in Surah Ar-Ra'du ayat 19 until 24 to talk about who ulul albab. So here I would like to listen from our speakers about the relationship between ulul albab and hikmah. Thank you.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum
Can
salam.
I ask a question, please?
We'll take one more, three, and then
Okay.
more time. Okay, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam warahmatullah.
I have one question which is not 100% related to what you have discussed today. I know that in the past, scholars were more independent. They were very focused on scholarship. Now, most scholars are centered at universities in today's world. But unfortunately, we see that many scholars are very passionate, or they want publicity or popularity. Sometimes you find them desperate for a photo opportunity with a politician. Whereas in the past, scholars used to run away from politicians. I read about Ibn Battuta. Wherever he went, the politicians used to hunt for him because they needed him to be the Chief Justice. But he used to run away from them because he was not interested in power. He was interested in knowledge. But it seemed that we are losing the tradition of scholarship. Our scholars are some kind of, they have lost their independence. They try to please the politicians, and they try to want some position in the corridors of power. So I hope if you can say a few words on this.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. The last one is from which professor?
I am Mahmudul Hassan. I am from English department.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Mahmud. Okay. Of course, not all question can be answered. Especially the one that I couldn't answer, I will leave to Prof. Shukran, Prof. Mumtaz, Prof. All these, Professor Sahirin also, my old friend. Okay, the first one, ulama and umara that who are strongly sometimes being criticized nowadays. I think, of course, these are the two important pillars of our country, actually, the umara and the ulama. And both groups must rise to the occasion. They have to do the best, actually. And people are putting high hope to them. And I think they are partly ours. I mean, the ulama and the umara are coming from the people. The umara is being appointed from among the people, representative from the people, and the ulama also, those we call ulama today, also being raised from universities, from other institutions. So I think it is a long process, and this problem is not the problem of today. Even at the time of Imam Al-Ghazali, he already criticized this ulama usu very strongly in his Ihya and other books. It means that even at his time, some ulama, for example, are only concerned with positions. And this is also related to the last question by Prof. Mahmud. Some ulama, they just want to be close to the umara because of self-interest. So I think if we do not do something with the educational system as a whole, this thing will be like a vicious cycle. It will be continuous because these so-called umara and ulama are coming from our educational system, and it is not there's no shortcut for it unless we can really do a proactive way in enhancing our education, either it is in Fardu Ain or Fardu Kifayah, then it is very difficult for us to stop this situation, the weakness of umara and ulama. At the same time, related to the question by Prof. Mahmud, I don't think that being detached from the government, from rulers, from the establishment is also a good solution to the advancements of our scholars. Because in the past also, I agree that the ulama should not be close to the umara because of self-interest, because of material and worldly interest. But in the past, we also have scholars and ulama who are being patronized by sultan, by khalifa, and they were doing well. Some of them are, most of them are doing well. So I think it is not necessarily because of their closeness to the establishment, the government, the hukuma, but how do they, what is their aim, objective, and how do they play their role to strengthen the nation as a whole. I think there are also examples from the past. We have scholars who are under the patronage of some sultan or khalifa, but they did well. Like Al-Ghazali, he's under Nizamul Muluk, and also other khalifa. So I think there are many factors that involve. It is not one factor kind of thing. It is many multifactorial things. But I also agree that we have to do something with our system, our educational system. We have to bring back proper Iqra and Hikmah in our system in order for us to really produce both good, either as a scholars or also as an umara, an amir, in order for us to be better. That is what I can say about that. Prof. Dr. Saufi, about Hikmah and Ulul Albab, I think there is a intimate relation between these two concepts, Ulul Albab and Hikmah, because in the Quran, when it talks about Ulul Albab, they are those who are الذين يذكرون الله قياما وقعودا وعلى جنوبهم, and then they are فيتفكرون في خلق السماوات والأرض, and ربنا ما خلقت هذا باطلا سبحانك فقنا عذاب النار. So hikmah really means that not only we are good in terms of our amal, but our mind must also doing excellent things in thinking, in grasping meaning and comprehending ideas from the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and arrive at proper conclusion. In that case, ulul albab, the conclusion is Rabbana ma khalaqta hadha batila. After they have seen and read the ayat of the creation, they come to a proper conclusion based on the religious guidance. So that is what, for example, our scientists should do today. And I also have some reservation on our educational system today, where sometimes we created, for example, tahfiz, for example, tahfiz science, where we combine, I'm sorry, this is only my personal view, we combine, for example, tahfiz, the memorization of the Quran, and science, and we call it tahfiz science. But that science that these huffaz are learning in that tahfiz are still science very much influenced by the Western premises in their conclusion, in their philosophical basis of that science, their biology, the physics, and others. So I think it is a good start. We want to combine between Hifzul Quran and also science, but the ultimate objective must be these sciences that we have now must be properly Islamized. But of course not by that huffaz, because they don't have the tool knowledge and all philosophical knowledge to do that, but by us, by KHAS. In fact, our kuliah is meant for that, because I myself, Dr. Aslina, Dr. Shukran, and Dr. Noh, we are among the first batch of reveal knowledge students. If you remember, reveal knowledge began with a department called Ulum Syariah, a kuliah called Ulum Syariah. Initially, they want it to be like the mufti kind of education. But later on, one of our rectors said, no, we want a combination between the Fardu Ain and the Fardu Kifayah, between the religious knowledge and the social science, the current knowledge. So at least the initiative is a good one. But of course, there are challenges. It is not easy, especially we are facing not a small civilization, it's a Western civilization that has established in a very long period of time, and they have conflicts between religion and science, religions and reason. And these are the challenges that we are having now. We want also to have huffaz who are also good in science, but unfortunately the science is not properly Islamized yet, and the huffaz are only memorizing the Quran. There is no theology there, there is no usul fiqh there. We need more in order for us to really come to the proper integration, combination of this Islamization of knowledge. Wallahu a'lam.
Dr. Farid.
Yes.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Can I have
Inshallah. Ya, Dr. Sahirin. Prof.
Salam, Dr. Farid. MashaAllah. I miss you a lot at the university. Okay.
You should be the speaker today.
Okay, MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah. The first, I congratulate you for a beautiful presentation. And I just a little bit will share with you regarding the concept of hikmah, MashaAllah. As you are rightly pointed out that in the verse of the Quran clearly mentioned, yu'til hikmata ma yasha wa ma yu'til hikmata faqad utiya khairan kathiran. And this one, I don't know, based on your extensive reading with the Western philosophy, that the Hikmah, it seemed to me when the Quran talk about such kind of the Hikmah, it is exclusively for the Muslim. But yet, sometimes that when we found the non-Muslim philosophers or non-Muslim thinkers who really they came out with an idea in somehow in line with the Islamic concept on that one. If you look at into the philosophical thinkers like the René Descartes, for instance, that some people also regard that René Descartes is really the replica of Imam Al-Ghazali and such kind of the thing. Another thing, like if you see the philosophy about science and everything, like the Galileo theory on that one. If you cut into Galileo theory, and he was at the end, because the theory completely contradicted with the Bible, and at the end he was taken into home arrest until the end of his life. And then people say that Galileo theory is really, this is the one that mentioned in the Quran. لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل سابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون. Other thing, if you look at into the theory of education by the John Locke philosophy, John Locke philosophical theory regarding the cognitive approach in education, and he came out with the theory of which known very famous as the tabula rasa theory. Tabula rasa theory somehow associated with the hadith that the Prophet says, "Ma min mauludin illa yuladu ala fitra," at the end of this one. I wonder what is that one, your opinion, the concept of hikmah, in which that also Allah granted to the hikmah, not necessarily to the Muslim, but as the hikmah also granted to the non-Muslim. This is number one. The second thing related to the concept of Iqra that you pointed out and related to the hikmah, why the Iqra is linked as Iqra bi'ismi rabbik. To my humble understanding, these days there are so many theological orientation. That's called the madahibul i'tiqadiyah. Madahibul i'tiqadiyah stated either we are Salafis or non-Salafis. Here in the Malaysian context and in our Malay archipelago, normally they follow the Aqidah belong to Ash'ariyah on that one. And while the people from the Middle East, especially the Gulf countries, they claim themselves as the, what do you call it, Salafi group on that one. But something which really sometimes make us disillusion, this whatever they claim belong to any particular group of theology, when they come into their practice in sociological context, in all business transactions, completely against the concept of Tawhid. I think that one, because of this, like the scholars, I think that Ismail Faruqi and also this Professor Nagib Alatas, also he came out with the theory which is known as the sociological Tawhid. This sociological Tawhid is related to the concept of Iqra bi'ismi rabbik. Because when say Rabb, to me that one is need, Rabb is the ultimate objective of the truth and justice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is characterized by the, what do you call it, the Adalah. Because of this, the hadith of the Prophet says, "Inni haramtu dhulma ala nafsi faja'atuhu muharraman fima bainakum fala tudhalimu." There's such kind of the thing. The issue, especially, is the first concern is the hikmah, which really given to the non-Muslim, and at the same time, we found the definition of hikmah by referring. I'm not quite sure whether it's hadith or not hadith. Where it says, "Al-hikmatu dalatul mu'min." This kind of the thing is sometimes also creating some maybe some similarities, or we can claim that Islam has the universal values. This is the thing, my observation on that one. I wonder if you could elaborate on that one to share with you on that one, and thank you very much. And again, I congratulate for your beautiful presentation, and thank you very much.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Is Abdul Hamid from Fiqh Department.
MashaAllah,
Dr. Farid, MashaAllah, well done. Very nice speech, inspiring and very touching. I got only one short comment. When you said Tawfiqul Amali bil Ilm, according to Imam Al-Razi, this is much, it is really related to what we are doing today. Because word action inconsistency is an act of hypocrisy and nifaq. So a mu'min by default should not have this dichotomy between ilm and amal. So hikmah is the one which monitors, guides the knowledge not to be destructive. Now, why the world is facing lots of problems because of the distraction that is happening. People might have knowledge, but they don't have the hikmah to use that knowledge, to utilize the knowledge they have. So I guess this is a very relevant topic because we might have knowledge. Many people have knowledge today, but because they lack hikmah, wisdom, they are destroying the world. So I think one of the aims of IUM, in particular our kuliya, is to train the students to have this world action consistency. Otherwise, this is nifaq. If what you learn is not in line with what you are promoting, or not in line with what you are doing, is not in line with Sharia, is if in contradicting Sharia, this is a problem. So this is what you have just mentioned. Another issue is, as you mentioned, al-kawn al-manzur wal-kawn al-mastur. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed al-kitab al-mastur. So if it is only relying on the book that we have, al-Quran, our sacred book, the knowledge that we teach our students, this will not be sufficient. So hikmah means is to combine what you learn and to explore the nature, al-kitab al-mandur, the open book of the nature. And subhanallah, this is also what you said, amal salih. So to have amal salih is to refrain from amal talih. Amal talih is to destroy yourself and as well as others. So hikmah is what guides you from not being indulged in amal talih that destroy everyone. Jazakallah khair ya Ustad. This was a wonderful presentation. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Abdul Wahid from Fiqh Department. I would like to ask a question about al-anat, al-hikmah wal-anat. Is it anat is a condition to be having a hikmah or not? Is it something related to each other? Al-hikmah wal-anat.
Anat is what?
Anat, this is mentioned in a hadith of the Prophet when he was, I can't remember the name of the Sahabi, and then the Prophet says there are you have two characteristics which Allah loves them. You have al-hikmah and you have al-anat.
Slowly, slowly.
Yeah.
Yes, slowly, right? Bitadrij.
Yeah, something which is... Yeah, al-anat, yes. With al-anat, something which is you don't rush for the things. You try to go gradually for the things. So is it a condition for you to have hikmah or not?
Okay.
Doctor, if you allow me, it is usually interpreted as benevolence.
Benevolence. Okay. Benevolence. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
I think Dr. Meor, you better ask your question before.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
It's okay.
There's 3 now, and then there's 2 more on the chat box. Just
okay.
Chat you, and then maybe you want to take a drink if you're thirsty.
Okay.
We'll do the 3, and then we'll get to the written questions, and then we'll go back to spoken questions.
If you allow me, the Sahabi was Ashaj Abdul Qais, by the name of Ashaj Abdul Qais.
Ashaj Abdul Qais.
Ashaj Abdul Qais.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm also learning a lot today. Thank you for the question. Of course, some of them are comments that I take it as also important information that we can benefit from, especially Prof. Sahirin and also Prof. Abdul Hamid, for example. There are many additional things, and I don't need to maybe respond to a few of them. Prof. Sahirin, I think if we talk about hikmah given by God to people of other civilization who are not Muslim, you took the example, for example, Descartes, John Locke, Galileo, and others. Of course, that is also part of hikmah, but like we said, our hikmah must be based on what the Quran says. And like Luqman, for example, when he is being attributed as Al-Hakim, one of the reasons because he taught his son about Tawheed. So it means Tawheed must be an important element of hikmah in the real sense and the Islamic sense. But hikmah in general, I think, in terms of wisdom, are given by God to many people. Descartes, for example. I learned about Descartes in Istaq last time. He was known as the father of modern philosophy. And they said he read Al-Ghazali's book, Al-Munqis min al-Dalal, which was found in his library when he died. But if you look at the way Descartes talk about doubt, it is called methodic doubt. I think, therefore I am. And what Al-Ghazali was talking in Munqis min al-Dalal, I think they are different, because Descartes begins with doubt in the real sense. You have to doubt everything for you in order for you to methodically came to knowledge and to certainty, including doubt about God, doubt about everything. You only be certain first with your thinking. So that's why I think, therefore I am. And he moved from there. But Al-Ghazali was not talking about that. Al-Ghazali already have a very deep and strong iman to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Only that he wanted a knowledge that is certain for him to know realities and to know God. And that's why he ultimately rests to tasawwuf as his channel of knowledge, and mukashafah and others. So it is more epistemological in the sense that Al-Ghazali is trying to find the best channel that he can have knowledge that is certain about things that he already being certain, which is God and others. But if you look at Descartes, John Locke, of course they have the hikmah in the sense that they have the clarity of mind in terms of putting forward their ideas, their arguments, their premises, yet they miss the very the most important aspects of hikmah that the Quran is saying, which is the tawheed part. The tawheed part. So in Islam, we talk about knowledge that begins with certainty. We take the Prophet as a certain and true source of our knowledge about God, and we begin from that. That's why it is very important to talk about hujjiyatu ar-rasul, for example. Why the Prophet is part and parcel of our shahada, because from the Prophet we know many things. So the theologian of Islam in the past, they try to settle that thing first, about the khabar as-sadiq coming from the Prophet. If you read, for example, aqaid, books of aqaid by our scholars in the past, they talk about epistemology in the first part of their theological books in order for us to really be certain with our khabar, with our channel of knowledge that come from the Prophet. Then come the reason to strengthen the channel of khabar. So I think when we talk about hikmah in the Islamic sense, we are talking about hikmah from the combination between the Quranic and also the rational aspect of hikmah. Allah alam, that is my view on that. I think Prof. Hamid and Prof. Hamid are giving many important information to us, so I take that as addition. Dr. Abdul who asked about hikmah and anad. If it is meant benevolent, I think it is part of hikmah, because to be hikmah also is to be wider in our spectrum of looking at things. Therefore, we are not quick to jump to conclusion before we really understand and grasp all the factors that involve in an issue that we are facing. So if benevolent or anat means, like you said, gradually, and there is maybe sobriety in it. Sobriety, I mean, you have to be sober. You are not too emotional, and I think that's all a part of hikmah that we are saying. Because hikmah is a virtue coming from proper thinking. Of course, there are many relevant attributes that are related to hikmah. That's why they are called, these four are called ummahat al-fadail. These are the most universal virtues, under which there are so many other virtues. Wallahu a'lam.
Okay. I'm being instructed to end the session now. Actually, we have two more. It depends. Like, can we entertain two more and two more written questions, or shall we?
Assalamu alaikum. Is it possible that I may ask a question here? Just give a comment.
It'll be like we're in the middle.
I leave it to the chairman, the moderator.
Okay, we'll take last three. Is that okay? And then we'll end it. We'll get one comment, and then we'll read two questions.
Okay, maybe short one.
Yeah, a short one maybe. Go ahead quickly.
Okay then. Is it alright that I start?
Okay, quick. Yeah.
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you so much, Dr. Farid, for this beautiful, informative presentation. MashaAllah. Thank you so much. Regarding Tafsir Razi and Imam Razi, that he said علوم النظرية علوم العملية في حكمة والعلم. I'm sorry that I cannot agree with him that he said العلوم النظرية, that is حكمة, والعلوم العملية, that is علم. We know that he was a philosopher, he was a great scholar, and that is why he tries to bring everything to philosophy. And that is why he was saying that hikmah is going to ulum al-nadariyah, theoretical knowledge, and ilm going to ulum amaliyah, that is practical knowledge. But I think that is not correct here, because we find all the prophets, the great thing that Allah gave them, that is hukman wa ilma. آتينا حكما وعلما. For Yusuf, Allah said, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ آتينا حكما وعلما, Surah Yusuf, page number 3. And for Musa alayhi salam, Allah said, وَلَمَّا بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ وَاسْتَوَى آتينا حكما وعلما. That is Surah Qasas, page number 3 in the beginning. All these prophets that Allah said, Allah gave them wonderful knowledge and hikmah. Meaning hikmah is the supreme stage to reach. That is the reality is to reach. When the knowledge, a knowledgeable man may not be hakim. That is the wise man. Wise man can only be the one who has the real knowledge, realities he has, at that time he can be. And that is why we find all the prophets, they were praying to Allah, Rabbi habli hukma, wal hikni bis salihin, as Ibrahim said, Surah Shu'ara. Ibrahim said, habli hukman, wal hikni bis salihin. All the prophets, Allah gave them like that they were given ilm and also hikmah. For Dawud and Sulaiman, Allah said that يعني وداود وسليمان إذ يحكمون في الحرث إذ نفشت فيه غنم القوم وكنا لحكمهم شاهدين ففهمناها سليمان وكلا آتينا حكما وعلما. Meaning the prophets, Allah gave them this knowledge. Meaning this is the supreme stage of reaching knowledge, and that is why they are getting it. So we need to link the knowledge to hikmah. How we get it? We have to get it from the Quran. We have to get it from Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, authentic one. And then we specialize in our field of knowledge. But if we abandon the Quran, abandon the Sunnah of Prophet, we can never achieve that hikmah that Allah was saying. All the prophets were given, and they were trying to get it. Allah gave it to them. So we have to get first from the Quran, from the Sunnah, and specialize in our field of knowledge. Thank you so much.
The written question is one from Dr. Intan.
Okay.
It says, Salam, Dr. Farid. In relation to verse 4153, how do we read the signs in ourselves and gain the hikmah? I think this is relating to what you just mentioned about tahfiz signs, is what Dr. Intan is saying. There's a second question from Dr. Zubaidi. Dr. Farid, sorry to ask if there are, is there any relation between hikmah and experience? Because some people may have less knowledge about, have less knowledge, but have a lot of experience, and he can be a wise person.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. Nur Osmani. I'm not sure whether I have presented Ar-Razi saying that hikmah and ilm are two different, one is nazari and one is amali. What I recall is that both are hikmah, but this hikmah are divided into one is nazari and one is amali, and both are hikmah and both are important. And that's why he talked about tawfiq between ilm and amal. I'm not sure, maybe you have read Ar-Razi in other places, but the one that I presented just now, Ar-Razi regarded both are hikmah, the amali and nazari, only that both cannot be independent, they must be combined, tawfiq, and the real hakim is the one who has both the nazari hikmah and also the amali hikmah. As to Dr. Intan, how to read signs in ourselves, I think the Quran also talk about wafi anfusikum afala tubsirun, right? Fil afaq or fil anfusikum. So it means that even within ourselves, there are signs that can bring us to God. And of course, many things in ourselves that can lead us towards the existence and the greatness of God. Our soul is something that is miraculous. There is no locus of it, yet we are controlled by it. This mind and matter problem is also debated in the West by Descartes also, and they cannot solve it. They recognize that in ourselves there are two elements. One is material and one is somehow immaterial, like our mind, for example. They don't talk about soul, but they talk about mind and matter. And finally they just reject the spiritual aspect of man, and they move to only the material and the physiological aspect of man, and that is how modern knowledge began, by only focusing on the physical and material aspect of human being. And that can be one of the important sign of how God created something which is spiritual. There's no locus of it, yet it is the king that control us. Even we are here today, not at the mall. We decided to come here, not going to other place. It's being controlled or done or decided by our akal, our roh, which are spiritual. I think that is one. What about the whole physiological system in our body, which are very systematic and all that? Those are all ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, creation of Allah ta'ala within ourselves, in addition to what we have in the creation outside there. And that must be part of the tahfiz school observation, experience, and other things. So they are not only learning science, but they also have to do science, to practice science and others. And the last one is about, again, the question is about what, Dr. Moderator, is it?
The second one is there any relation between hikmah and experience? Because some people
hikmah and experience, yeah,
and vice versa.
Okay, actually hikmah is a combination of both, combination of knowledge and also experience. But if you remember, I mentioned about literal meaning of hikmah is atqana. Atqana mean is to perfect things. That perfection is actually coming from experience. But what are you perfecting? You are perfecting things that you already know. So you have to begin with knowledge. But when we say knowledge, it does not only mean knowledge that we gain from educational system like university and school. That's why I know when you ask about, there are so many other people who are wise, yet they didn't go to school, like our great grandparents, for example. They may not go to school, but when they talk wisely. They are giving good advice to us. In fact, the prophet is ummi. The Arab in the time of prophet are mostly ummi. They cannot read and write. But it doesn't mean that they don't have wisdom, because knowledge were being transferred through oral tradition. Even hadith, most of the hadith in the first part of 100 and 200 years are being transferred, nakal, through lisan, not through written. Because prophet didn't allow the Sahaba to write the hadith, worrying because he didn't want it to be mixed with the Quran. So wisdom will not necessarily achieve through reading and writing, but it can also arrive through oral tradition, and also through conversation, dialogue. And we talk to others, then it become the knowledge that we have become refined, become perfect. So that is the relation between hikmah and experience. Wallahu alam.
Dr. KhAIR, quickly, this is the final.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Happy to see you again, Dr. Farid.
Dr. KhAIR, Husaini.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. So I'll try to make it short. Now, there have been suggestions that Aristotle has already distinguished between knowledge and wisdom when he speaks of episteme and Sophia, although Sophia is not necessarily, it has been contested whether Sophia is of Greek origin or not. Now, there is a book on, the director of the Center for Science and Religion at Columbia University in 1999. He wrote a book titled The Missing Moments, Robert Pollack. The Missing Moments, he tackled the subject of the difference between knowledge and wisdom, and the scientific knowledge and scientific wisdom. Now, also in our department, we changed the subject, we changed the subject of Ayatul Ahkam into Al-Hikam wal-Ahkam fil Quran, Al-Hikam wal-Ahkam fil Hadith, in order to address the question of scientific wisdom rather than scientific knowledge. As you have already also indicated, sometimes there are things that are being considered as scientific knowledge, whereas they are of this sometimes misunderstanding or corruption in the Western worldview. So scientific wisdom is far more important than scientific knowledge, and hikam, and it falls into the category of hikam. Now, another thing, I think, do you agree that when we speak of hikam, in our attempt to define hikmah and to find what is meant by hikmah, we need to be aware as well of the different degrees of hikmah. Because there's like hikmatullah, hikmatul anbiya, hikmatul awliya, and then we must not fall into the trap of trying to measure hikmah or try to standardize hikmah. That I think this is very important, because not everyone has their own perspective on how to define hikmah. But and I think you yourself are familiar with hikmah muta'aliyah and all of this discussion related to the very how do I put it, intricate discussion on hikmah itself. So that is my comment, that I'm concerned with sometimes people say that this is not hikmah, this is not hikmah, just because it doesn't fit their own judgment or their own evaluation. So I think this is important to highlight, and I hope for your comment on this. Thank you very much, Dr. Farid.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Husaini. I agree. And thank you for the information. I also didn't sometimes realize, but I agree that there's a level of hikmah. In fact, that's why God is the Hakim, the absolute Hakim. Of course, the level of hikmah of God totally, definitely different from hikmah of the Prophet, and more so the hikmah of us, human being. So there are levels of hikmah, and that is why the Prophet is the best model of the one who possesses hikmah. And of course, Allah is our guidance, who will guide us. And we always ask Allah maftah alayna hikmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is why our hikmah always be subjective, and there's a limit of our hikmah. And in our history also, this hikmah the term hikmah has been narrowed down to many groups that only talk about hikmah within their framework. Like the Sufi have their concept of hikmah, the philosopher have their concept of hikmah. So we have to go back to the Quranic aspect of hikmah, which is more generic and more acceptable to all, and move from there. Thank you very much, Doctor.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, we have come to the end of the session. No more questions. End of the session. Hopefully the talk has been beneficial for all members, all my colleagues, all my brothers, all my sisters, beneficial for everyone. Hopefully it'll be better. No more confusion between knowledge and information. No more drowning in information and starving for wisdom. We'll be improving day by day. Hopefully we can be the synthesizers, the people who put together information in the right way at the right time, and critically talk about things and make choices and so on. So as a reminder, we will continue the series. The series will continue for one more installment. That will be on Friday, 15th of January. I'm sure if there are any announcements, any changes, they'll be made known to us by email and so on. And before I adjourn today's session, on behalf of the Ibadah Camp committee, we wish to put to record our sincere appreciation, a deep appreciation to our invited guests. Dr. Farid, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. And of course the Kuliah management team as well. Thank you, and not to forget everyone who was involved, and my dear colleagues at my department and all the other departments as well, and all the staff members. Thank you everyone for spending time with us. Inshallah, may this session and all the sessions we've had, all the 4 sessions, bring benefit to us, and I end our session today with Surah Al-Asr and Tasbih Farah. Thank you very much, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.